Hey fellow Shadowwork facilitators, this is Dimitri Bilgear, and I just wanted to really briefly talk about this idea that I've been getting some traction on that's been bugging me for years and years and years, which is this question of what is the dynamic of the identity wound in the warrior quarter? Because we've got really good ones for the lover and for the sovereign and for the magician, and maybe things have changed because I haven't been as involved. But recently talking to Robert Hatch, who's a guy who's done tons of shadowwork trainings back in the old days, we started to see a way in which we could see the warrior identity wound that might be helpful. It's actually really helped me. I can say I am married because I got this warrior identity wound piece the way that I'm about to talk about. So for me, it's been a big deal. We can look at the identity wounds as questions, right? The sovereign identity wound question could be, how do you believe love is conditional for you, that you have to perform for, right? Because remember, the question isn't, do you have these, but how do you have them? So we all look as facilitators, how do we believe our love is conditional? And in the lover, there's how do you hold pain to show love, right? That's a question, we ask that. And in the magician, how do you predate to keep bad things from happening? How do you manipulate to keep bad things from happening? But I'm not really sure what the question has been in the warriors until now. And the question in the warrior quarter I'm starting to see is, how do you reject that there's any authority over you? It's how do you deny that there's any authority greater than yourself? So, let's say, how do you deny authority? Now, if you worked with me a few years ago at CFG, I did a piece for my personal work where a higher power came onto the carpet, but the higher power was saying, Dimitri, sit down, shut up. Who do you think you are telling me what to do? It was an authority that I had to submit to. I think one way to say the warrior wound is to say that we are unable to say there's an authority greater than ourselves that we have to submit to. In the sovereign, this is about there's an authority that there's a love that we're not willing to receive. But in the warrior, I think it's like there's a correction, there's our place that we're not willing to receive. You know, for so many of us, it's like that great saying that I saw. That everybody wants to work for God, but as a consultant, you know, with a lot of good ideas on how to fix things up, as sort of a co-equal with God. And I think it's possible that a lot of people who are attracted to personal growth work actually have this wound in spades because we've been hurt by a higher authority, and so we're not willing to say there's a higher authority above me. Maybe at best I'm peers with the divine, but the wound, the dynamic they don't have is being able to see, wow, there is something a lot bigger than me that doesn't have to explain itself to me, that I'm not in charge of, and that has authority over me. And this was exactly the piece of work I had to do to become someone who could get married. Because for many years I wanted to get married, and I had a list of everything that I was supposed. This is what a woman should look like. This is what she should do. This is what she shouldn't do. It was a good list. And I did a lot of personal growth about it for decades, and nothing moved on it. Nothing really moved on it until I did a piece of work about how I was denying an authority and got into an authoritative God who actually said to me, you're not in charge of how your life goes. You're not in charge of the woman you get. And as long as you think you are in charge, I'm going to screw you. Why? Because I love you and I want you to have the best. But right now, sit down, shut up. It's a warrior thing, right? There was a line I was unwilling to respect. And so I'm starting to think this warrior wound is about the identity was about denying authority, and we certainly see it in our groups. People who have the warrior wound who show up in our groups, they're denying our authority. Now, I don't have a great way to do an intervention around that, but we can look to ourselves and say, how do I deny an authority? How do I receive divine guidance when it fits what I'm interested in, but I kind of don't receive it when it doesn't fit what I'm interested in? Because, you know, I'm peers, but I don't really have any authority over me. Well, that authority, that big and little, that line is what a lot of warrior energy is about. So I want to suggest that that's something for you to start to look at, or just give me some feedback on it. Tell me what you think. It's made a huge difference for me to start to see that there's a process there. So let's talk.